Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. This is episode 93 with Taylor Hahn. Taylor is a music producer, audio engineer, mixing engineer, and owner of Hahn Audio Recording Studio in Denver, Colorado. With over 10 years of experience, Taylor has been a part of records charting on Billboard and top 10 on iTunes. Former guest of the show, Nicholas DiLorenzo, recommended I reach out to Taylor, who graciously agreed to join me on the show, and we had a great conversation. We talked about quitting his day job, going full-time, building his own recording studio, how he reaches out to bands and networks, how he works with bands in the studio, his unique approach to tracking electric guitars, why he loves analog summing, his approach to mixing, why he only works on one project at a time, and so much more. Tons of great takeaways packed into this episode, so I think you're going to love it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Taylor Hahn here on Secret Sonics. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Yeah, so tell me a bit about yourself. I've never been to Colorado. Sounds like a dope place.
It's awesome, man. We're definitely growing. It's, the music scene out here has grown a lot, which is great to, being a studio. And we've gotten a lot of snow the past couple weeks, which is, Colorado. We're known for snow, but I was born here, but it hasn't been as snowy as it has been in past seasons. So it's definitely... not above average, but it's above average than what we've had. So, but Colorado's great.
Yeah, the climate is changing. So
yeah, no, absolutely. But if you like, sunshine, skiing, camping, hiking, all of that stuff, Colorado's for you.
Yeah, man.
So
I hear great things.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I've been recording now for 10, 11 years. In the past 7-8 years has been full-time, and I started in my parents' basement. I played in a band in high school, and every time we recorded, I just loved the process, and I ended up buying a Line 6 2-channel interface back in like 2010, and I just became obsessed. There was only two channel inputs, so I'd call my drummer over, and I'd be like, hey, bring your set over. I'm going to try to figure out how to get these two microphones to sound as best as it can to capture the entire kit, and we started recording demos on it, and I kept calling the engineer guy that we would go record at, and I kept asking him questions. I was like, how do I do this? How do I go about doing this? And he was like, man, why don't you just take my internship? And at the time, I was working at Guitar Center because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do right after high school. And I was playing in a band, and that seemed like the most, comfortable place to be. I was like, cool, I know all about this. So I remember after I talked with him about the internship, I kind of talked to my parents, and I was like, hey, I think I know what I want to do, but I want to be able to do this full time. Can I quit my job at Guitar Center, and you guys essentially pay for my gas and kind of be no different than going to a college, pretty much. And my parents were like, yeah, we can do that. So I quit Guitar Center and started a 6-month internship that turned into a 2-year internship and kind of never looked back. I was a lifeguard in the summer times, and so I would work in the summer, and that would try to make the most of my money through that summer so I could kind of get through the winter. But then it kind of came time to, be an adult. I think I was like 20 when I finally moved out, 2021. Got an apartment, and I was recording a little bit at that time by myself. I was still kind of interning, but my parents, we used to practice at my parents' house in their basement because Colorado has basements. So, so we would practice in the basements, and then I kind of turned it into a little studio area, and before you know it, I was recording bands out of there for super cheap, and my parents were just kind of like, they were super supportive of it. I kind of told them, I was like, hey, can I keep this here and kind of keep this growing until I, end up finding a place, of my own, or, get to a place of being that successful to have my own spot, because you couldn't record out of apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I am, but.
We did live drums and,
But if you're doing drums, no way.
Yeah. No, this was before MIDI was, really big on the drum side of things.
Right, you come from like a metal background, right?
Yeah, I played in a metal band. I played guitar Yeah, MIDI, we can talk about this, later too, but MIDI is, that's not my first go-to, unless, the band doesn't have a drummer or for performance issues and stuff like that. I usually try to use as much live instrumentation as I can. So, but yeah, we were tracking live drums and we had an oversized laundry room and we would track drums in there, and it was a little like probably 10 foot by 12 foot box and sounded horrible. So I had so much foam packed in that room that it was just dead. And we would add reverbs and stuff later to kind of bring it back to life. But it's pretty much how I started. And then it kind of took off, and my parents, they were looking to downsize their house, and I ended up renting their house from them for quite a while. And
really?
Yeah, because they were just like, well, the studio's here and it's, it's keeping you busy. And I went full time with it back in 2014. And then I rented their house out from like 2015 to about a year and a half ago. And I ended up getting my own house now. And now I'm in the studio that I'm in now. So,
wow.
It's been a long, crazy road. And actually, believe it or not, my father, he actually passed away a couple months ago, but...
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer. But my mother, obviously she's my mom, so I'm super close to her, but she's actually selling her house and closing on the house next week. So it's kind of like she's closing the house that, the studio started in and that I kind of grew up in. So this week's pretty bittersweet. So it's cool to see her move on from it and downsize and get her, a townhouse of some kind. But, it's just like, oh man, the studio used to be here. So yeah.
End of an era.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah. But, I love the new place that I'm in now. It's about 1,100 square foot studio. I have a whole separate tracking room, whole separate control room. And
wow, I don't even understand feet anymore, honestly. I'm so in the metric system.
Really? Oh, yeah. I couldn't tell you
what would you say it is, like by meters, or you could even give me feet by feet?
It's probably a 14 by 20 foot tracking room with about an 8-foot ceiling. Nice. And then my control room area is probably maybe 30 feet, 40 feet wide, and about maybe 25 feet in length.
Oh, so the control room's bigger than the live room.
Yeah, that's how it worked out. So
got to get those ATCs. Give them enough room to get out that low end.
No, absolutely, and it's actually, I bought the 40. I had the 25s ordered last summer is when I got these, and like 3 weeks before they were supposed to ship, I was like, let me get the 45s. Like I'd rather grow into them. Because the plan is to do a full build with, I want to get about 4 or 5 acres of land, have the house, and then do a full separate facility for the studio. And going to do the full works for it, make sure the back wall from the front of the speakers is, I think it's 28 feet or 26 feet. So from the front of the speaker to the first back wall is going to be, 25, 26 feet plus. So
wow.
You have that perfect low end breakup, and there's no reflection of that. And, have
that's crazy.
At least 16-foot, ceilings for the tracking room.
Wow.
And so it'll be fun. It'll be a crazy process, but we'll get there.
So I guess things have really picked up if you're thinking about expanding.
Yeah, well, that's definitely been the goal for me for a while. Is that's the dream studio.
You think of it as like a commercial studio, like making like
absolutely. And the other plan is actually there was a studio that liquidated a couple weeks ago here in town, and I picked up a bunch of gear from them, and it's actually gear that I don't even need. Like I have 1176s just sitting in a closet. But I knew that I want to have a Studio A and a Studio B. So, I got 1176s at like $1,000 a piece.
Sheesh.
And those are like, I think they're like 2,400 brand new right now. So picked up a couple of those, picked up some distressors, some other microphones and stuff like that, just because the plan is to have 2 studios to where other engineers, a lot of people, someone like yourself that's like, oh, I'm in an apartment situation, but I'd love to do live drums, and you say, oh, let's call Taylor up and go track drums in his studio room and have an A and a B studio room. So
are there a lot of studios in Denver?
Yeah, there are quite a bit. It's, as the scene has grown in the past, 10 years, I've seen studios come and go, but there's a good amount of us that are, have been able to stay busy and keep the doors open. And thankfully
awesome.
through COVID, I'm one of the studios that have been able to stay busy. And I mean, for me,
Because you have 2 rooms.
I don't have 2 rooms right now, but that's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah. I just have one.
Well, because I guess you have a separate live room and a separate
Yep.
a separate tracking room and a separate control room.
Yeah. There's a lot of studios that, that are getting great sounds out of their one room situation, kind of like you are. But yeah, there's also, the bigger studios here in town that are still tracking and staying busy. And I think at the new year, I saw a big push. I think bands just got motivated and they were just like, all right, COVID or not, like we want to keep recording music and keep getting music out there.
Yeah. Musicians will be musicians.
Yep.
Well, Colorado seems awesome. Well, I just want to ask you about your journey a little bit. Like, was there a moment that you're like, oh, this is actually working? Like your aha moment of like, man, I can actually do this full time. I can make a living doing this.
Yeah, there was a moment for sure. It was in 2014 when I was a manager of a rec center swimming pool. And so that was my day job. And then on the nights and, random days off, I would record bands. And it started getting in the way where it was like, this band was like, hey, we can come in, Thursday through Sunday. And I was like, I can't get my Thursday, Friday off. So I can only track you Saturday. And it was to the point where it's like I wasn't busy enough to necessarily like quit my job and just record full time. So it was kind of just that, all right, like you either just got to take that leap and quit and then figure out how to do it. And I kind of did that. And it was December of 2014 that, I put my 2 weeks in and I was like, hey guys, I'm done. I'm going to figure this out. And there was definitely a couple times where, over the course of the next couple months, there was some struggling months for sure. And the biggest thing for me is like being a studio owner is like you have to keep the pipeline flowing. You have to be talking with bands. And, I might talk to a band today that necessarily won't do anything until June or July. But when they're ready, I'm that phone call because I spoke to them today. So, got to stay proactive and networking with artists and keeping up on that side of things. But, when I quit my day job, there was a couple rough few months leading up to it where I was just like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make rent. And, there was definitely a couple times where I was maybe a couple $100 short. And it was just like, all right, like, Mom, I need some help, unfortunately. And I remember it was probably like 5 months in, it wasn't exactly looking like I thought it was going to look. And my mom was just like, you should probably, or my parents were just like, you should probably maybe get, a night job, stocking shelves or something. And I remember I got halfway through like a UPS employment application. And I was just like, screw it. I was like, I'm going to make this work. And I X'd it out on the computer and I was like, all right, and my parents were kind of pissed off because they were just like, yo, you're struggling right now. But, a month or so later, that pipeline, as you just network and talk to people, like I just started getting booked and started getting busy. And, there's definitely been some, it's, as an entrepreneur, like anything, it's, you have your good months and you have your bad months. And, but I've been blessed and thankful to call this my full-time job since, end of 2014, 2015. So,
well, I want to. There's a couple of thoughts I had on that, but there's always going to be that weird in between period. Like, if you make that leap, and so I was working weddings in addition to recording for a while, and at a certain point I said like I got to stop managing this band. It's taking up too much of my brain. And I finally stepped away after, this is a band I co-founded and we did tons of weddings.
Yep.
And eventually I just said, you know what, this is, if I want to do audio, if I want to be, producing, mixing, like, I need to step away.
Yeah.
And the year after that happened was terrible.
Yeah.
I earned so little money.
Yeah.
And then things slowly started picking up and then COVID happened, but whatever, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
But,
oh, man.
But like, I think you have to brace yourself, like, or, like luckily it worked out in the end, but like maybe a lesson would be like put a little bit away first or something, get yourself some runway.
Absolutely. And it's funny looking back, like our real estate market in Denver is absolutely insane now. Like our rent market, housing market. Like my mom just sold her house for $30,000 over asking price because people are just like, we want your help.